Welcome to my Harris versus Trump summer updated prediction. Let's start. And there we go. Let's start with the likely states. For the Democrats, I'm going to start with Colorado. Colorado, it's probably going to stay the same with Kamala Harris. Colorado would only drop a couple points to around 9%, maybe 8%, while for New Mexico, it would be a similar story. You can make a case that if she does really bad with Hispanics and Donald Trump capitalizes on that, it could become a lean, but I think that's too much of a stretch. I think it would go to at most 6%, but I think it would be around 7 to 8% in this case scenario. Now for Virginia, so as many of you know, Virginia is really one of those states that's controlled by the suburbs near Washington, and it's not going to trend to the right unless something massive happens. And I only see Virginia dropping to somewhere to like Colorado, New Mexico to like 8 or 9. And before I forget, I think Maine at large would only drop to a likely, but still she would do well in this section of the country as well. And now for the likely states for the Republicans and Donald Trump. Let's start with Florida. So Florida would just barely go to a 5-point margin, with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis probably being on the ticket with Donald Trump. They would easily get a double boost in this state. And yet, even though both of them would be from the same state, I'm pretty sure Donald Trump can easily change his home address to New York or Nevada or wherever Donald Trump has some form of a building or section that he owns. Now, for Texas, this is a really interesting case for this election between Harris and Donald Trump. You could easily make a case for it to be lean. I could see that also happening. But because it's Harris, I just don't think she would be able to make it drop below 5%. And I think what would happen is it would probably either stay around 5.5% or either trend the same way that Ohio trended to the left barely in 2024, meaning that it only go down by like 0.1% at most. And I just see Donald Trump doing well, especially against Harris. Against Biden, I do think it would probably drop to like a lean margin. But because Trump, this would be his third election, he would have all that experience. I just don't see a way in which Harris can make any gains. And within Hispanics, which are probably going to trend to the right with Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, especially Cuban Americans. And all those anti-socialist demographics would probably go for Donald Trump heavily. And lastly, for Maine at large, it would drop. It would be similar to 2020, around 6 to 8%. And yeah, not much apart from that. And for Ohio and Iowa for the GOP, both of them would be around 8%. Bear in mind it's in the Rust Belt, and I do think Donald Trump would do really well in the Rust Belt against Harris, and I think it would trend to the right. I doubt they would trend to the right to the point in which they would become safe states. Bear in mind my safe state margin is 12 plus safe, but I think it would make gains, and they would probably go to around, give or take, 9%, 10%. And yeah, so before I forget, Democrats would have 181 electoral votes being safe, while Republicans would have 125. And for the likely states, Republicans would have 94 electoral votes, while Democrats would get only 30 votes. I'm going to start with the Democrats. Let me start with Minnesota. So Minnesota would drop to a lean margin. I doubt we would go back to 2016 when it almost went to Trump. And it wasn't that far. I think it was either a tilt margin or around 1.5%. I don't think she would do that horrible, but I do think Donald Trump with Ron DeSantis would do really good gains in the suburbs, and Hispanics would do really well with Donald Trump as seen in 2020, in which Donald Trump made really gigantic gains with Cuban Americans and really any anti-socialist voters in 2020. And I strongly think that this would carry on in 2024, especially against someone that is more left-wing than Biden, that being Kamala Harris. It's one of those reasons why I think these states like Florida and Texas would especially stay as likely, and I think it wouldn't work as much in Minnesota, but I still think Minnesota would be around 2 to 4% in 2024, and the margin would probably be around 3% between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. While for New Hampshire, it's a really interesting state. You could make a case that it could become a tilt state in 2024 between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, because New Hampshire is one of those states that every now and then can swing by a lot. as we saw in 2020. But with Donald Trump being really anti-establishment, I don't think he would be able to win the state or make it extremely close. But I think it would make gains with Ron DeSantis being on the ticket to 2% to 3%. And now for the lean states, for Donald Trump and the DeSantis ticket, the only lean state would be North Carolina. North Carolina is always one of those states that is always around 1% to 3% for the GOP. Obama won it back in 2008, but ever since then it's been pretty good for the GOP. In 2024, between Harris and Donald Trump, you would see a really mix in the state, since you would probably see Donald Trump make gains with a lot of demographics, and depending on how well Kamala Harris campaigns, she could technically get a support from African Americans, but because she's more left-wing, some of them might not vote for her or might just stay at home, but depends on a lot of things. You could make a case that North Carolina could swing to the right if Donald Trump really goes out and calls Harris a socialist, but I think it would be around 3 to 4%, around 4% in 2024 between these two people. And yeah, before I go talk about the tilt state, Harris has 225 versus Trump's 235. And before that, I'm going to give a shout out to Pack Politics. He makes really good videos. I enjoy a lot of his what if and 2024 projections. And yeah, check him out, leaving his link in the description. And back to the tilt states. With Kamala Harris being the nominee in 2024, I think she would just barely win Georgia because of the fact that she's African American and the state is slowly trending to the left. And I just don't see Donald Trump having the appeal that he has in the southern purple states like Georgia. I do think someone like DeSantis would be able to win Georgia, but I think even though Harris is more left-wing, she would just have the help of people like Stacey Abrams and other Democrats that have really done really well with African American turnout, and would just win Georgia. And let me move on to Wisconsin. So Donald Trump would win Wisconsin by, I would say, a tilt margin. Republicans would not do as well with Trump on the ticket instead of DeSantis. I think DeSantis would win here by a lean margin. Donald Trump would still win. And with minorities in the Rust Belt slowly decreasing and moving to the south, Donald Trump would probably win here by 0.75% to 1%. And yeah, it's the reddest state in the Rust Belt and probably will slowly become a red state by 2028. And I see Donald Trump winning against Harris in Wisconsin. And let me move on to Arizona. I do think Harris would just win here by a tilt margin, even though this is probably one of those states I'm most tempted to leave as a toss-up or flip it. Similar to Georgia, Arizona is slowly trending blue because of the southern belt becoming slowly bluer in certain areas, not all of them. And because of how much Trump went after the McCain family, and especially John McCain, the establishment part of Arizona really hates him. And even with Harris, they would probably side with her instead of Donald Trump. And with the state slowly becoming bluer, I think Donald Trump would just not be able to do as good with the southern purple states, as I've said before, in Georgia. And Harris would just win here by 0.1%, 0.2%, and yeah. Well, on the other hand, Donald Trump, I'm gonna put Pennsylvania as tilt red for him. So, as I've said before, he has really good Rust Belt appeal, and he can campaign on his economy pre-COVID, which was pretty well. And I think he could repeat what he did in 2016 and win Pennsylvania once again, because of the lower turnout that Harris would have with centrist Democrats and conservatives. Donald Trump would capitalize on that and win Pennsylvania. Yep. And now I'm gonna move on to Nevada. I'm gonna put Nevada as you could make a case for lean, but with Donald Trump and with Harris being more left-wing, I'm going to put it as tilt. I still think Harris would just win Nevada. It will be kind of close, but I just don't think Donald Trump would be able to win in the southern purple states. Yeah, he would make really good gains with Hispanics, but I don't think it would be enough for states like Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia, he would really do well with high Cuban American places like Florida, Texas. In Nevada, there is some Cuban Americans, but I just don't see a way in which he would do enough in the suburbs to flip the state. It would still be a tilt state, bear in mind, which would scare Democrats, and Harris would just barely win the state by around 0.25% to around 0.75%. Let me go to Nebraska's, Nebraska's 2nd district. I think it would go to Donald Trump, barely though, because of the new redistricting. The GOP is gonna try to really gerrymander this district to make it a +1 Biden, and I don't see a way in which Harris would be able to get to that number, especially if she goes against Donald Trump, and she is more left-wing, and at the moment she's just unpopular with many demographics, and I think because of the redistricting, Donald Trump would just win the 2nd district of Nebraska by a tilt margin. And lastly, for Michigan, so Michigan is one of those states which was the most interesting for me to talk about. And I think Donald Trump would just win it in 2024 against Harris, thus repeating what he did in 2016 in the Rust Belt. I think he would win Michigan just barely around 0.1%. Some people have said to me, I don't think Democrats will do the same mistakes that they did in 2016. And I agree, they won't. But from 2016 to 2024, the demographics of African Americans will decrease by a lot. And I think that would just be enough in which Michigan would be able to go for Donald Trump. And yeah, so for my 2024 prediction between Harris and Donald Trump, I see Donald Trump winning with 280 electoral votes against Kamala Harris 258. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video.